She was wearing a white dress that went below the knee and fit her new shape perfectly. There were cameras, news stories, and people on social media who couldn't stop talking. Gayle King, famous journalist, co-anchor of CBS Morning, best-selling author, and best friend of Oprah, was glowing at a New York City opening with a lot of famous people. What happened? This film is very moving and shows how Celine Dion fought a rare neurological disease. But Gayle's fans weren't just talking about the movie or her fancy outfit while she stood for pictures. They were talking about something else in a whisper, which made people ask her questions she wasn't ready to answer. Her huge weight loss. Without a doubt, she looked beautiful. Hair styled in soft waves, gold shoes that sparkle, skin that glows, and makeup that looks perfect. The online talk, on the other hand, was different. Was it the Olympics? Was it another drug to help her lose weight, like the one her best friend Oprah recently admitted to using? Gayle hadn't said anything about the rumors, but her silence made people more interested. And for someone who had been so honest, open, and willing to talk about anything from politics to pain for decades, her silence seemed strange, even suspicious. People began to pay more attention. A swimmer's issue of Sports Illustrated just put her on the cover. She was 69 years old, which is an age when most announcers are thinking about slowing down, not making poses on glossy magazine covers and swimmers. Gayle made fun of the photo shoot by saying she ate a cheeseburger before the picture was taken and asked for appropriate cleavage. She didn't say why this change happened all at once though. She did say that she worked out 5 or 6 times a week. Others weren't so sure because they could tell something was wrong with her, both physically and mentally. She said she felt better than ever. There was something more delicate and personal behind the sure smile and happy voice. Then she talked about mental health. Gayle wrote a very personal piece in May 2022 about how important it is to talk about mental health every day, not just during Mental Health Awareness Month. She talked about losing someone. She talked about killing herself. She also said that having a pretty face doesn't always mean someone is okay. The way she thought about Cheslie Christ's death was especially sad. Cheslie, who used to be Miss USA, killed herself even though she seemed to have everything she needed. Gayle talked to Cheslie's mom and told her the most unforgettable part of the story. Cheslie wrote Mom a note that said, "You didn't do anything wrong. You did a great job." Gayle was hurt by that, because you could tell how much it hurt her when she told you that people can be in pain even when they're happy, that we're all only one bad moment away from breaking, and that it's hard to talk about that kind of pain. For someone who always smiles on TV, being that honest was very rare. People started to wonder if Gayle was going through something she wasn't telling them. Later that same year, she said that her longtime friend Oprah had been hospitalized because of a severe stomach sickness that left her thirsty. Gayle carefully told the audience that she hoped Oprah wouldn't get mad at her for telling such a private story. Fans noticed that she looked shaky as she said it, as if the subject of health had become more important than anyone knew, which she didn't say out loud. Soon after, Gayle began skipping things. People saw her less when she wasn't at work. When she did show up, the change in how she looked was more obvious. Her co-workers at CBS praised her for being fit and following the rules. She laughed it off and talked about working out, drinking water and Weight Watchers. But by early 2024, people who knew her well could tell that something had changed again. She spoke more slowly and seemed to think more deeply on air. She said that one time she was afraid that people might not be able to talk about their pain when they are in public. She didn't say she was having a hard time, but her tone made it clear. Around this time, rumors began to spread behind the scenes. These rumors did not come from tabloids or fans, but from people who worked with her and saw that she was taking longer breaks between parts, walking more slowly at times, and winced when she stood up. Then something happened that made everything different. She rarely ever took time off from CBS mornings, but she did it for a few days. The network said it was planned time, but people who work on the show said it might not have been. A director said she had cried during a commercial break a few days before. Someone else said that Gayle had just learned some shocking medical news that she wasn't ready to share with the public yet. It was impossible to hear Gayle and the network. Something had changed when she came back to the show. She looked like she was going to smile no matter what, but even her most devoted fans could tell. Behind that smile was something. The surprise then came. Friends and family of hers said she recently got a serious but unknown illness that made her have to make instant changes to her lifestyle and make her rethink everything, including her schedule, diet, and future. Something made her take a step back and wonder if she could keep doing this job with the same drive she had for decades. But Gayle King wasn't going through any of it by herself. Before every big move in her career, every change in her personal life, every interview that went viral, and every public rumor, Oprah Winfrey was always there. She had been for almost 50 years. Their friendship didn't grow at red carpet events or media galas. It began in the neighborhood news, a long time before either of them became well known. In 1976, Gayle was a young production helper at Baltimore's WJZ-TV. She ran scripts and did other mundane work behind the scenes. A few years her junior, Oprah was already making waves as a news reporter for the same station. That little office in Baltimore is where one of the most famous friendships in TV history began. From the beginning they became closer not because they were famous or in the press, but because they talked late at night, slept over together during snowstorms, and respected each other. Later, Gayle would become a reporter at WUZA-TV in Washington, D.C., and then host the news in Kansas City and Hartford. Meanwhile, Oprah's career took off with the Oprah Winfrey Show in Chicago and her rise to fame around the world. Gayle joined Oprah as an editor when she started O, the Oprah magazine in 1999. In 2011, Gayle's talk show on O ended. When she moved on to national morning TV with CBS, Oprah was there for her. Over the years they shared more than just important work moments. They got divorced, stood up for each other when they were attacked in public, and helped each other through very personal losses. Gayle's daughter Kirby and son, Will, pretty much knew Oprah like a second mother, and Gayle was always there for Oprah when she wasn't in the press. People all over the world were always guessing. Some of the things people asked were reasonable, while others were not. Were they more than just friends? Was there something else? In an appearance with Barbara Walters in 2010, Oprah talked about it directly. She called Gayle the sister she never had, and the friend everyone deserves. When the question came up again in 2024, both women laughed it off with the same honesty and confidence that had always made them who they were. There was no need for labels. They didn't need to be proven right. They were friends because they trusted each other, not because of their labels. Fans talked about Ozempic and other Hollywood quick fixes when Gayle shocked everyone in 2024 by losing a lot of weight so quickly. But not many people knew what was going on behind the clean CBS desk, a sickness, a shift in habit, or a new truth. Gayle didn't want sympathy either. She wanted time alone, help, and to be understood. That was from Oprah. They were still going to galas together, walking the red carpet together, and finishing each other's lines in interviews. Now though, something was different. Guilt was in Gayle's words, and Oprah's eyes showed that she was guarding her. In June 2024, Gayle was the one who told everyone that Oprah had a stomach bug that made her very thirsty and had to go to the emergency room. She was careful and honest about it. It was very bad, she said, and Oprah needed to rest. It scared her. People who watched saw what it was, a friend watching another friend go through something scary and vulnerable. Gayle wasn't just talking about Oprah, though, which was what most people missed. She talked about both of them. That moment changed everything. Because while Oprah was in the emergency room, Gayle was quietly taking care of something just as important that had to do with her health and her future at CBS. At about the same time, the network made a controversial choice when it moved CBS Mornings from its fancy Times Square studio to a less fancy one on the west side of Manhattan. It might have been just a change of scenery for most reporters. It was like getting hit in the face for Gayle. She agreed to stay for another rough season of network changes and company budget cuts when she signed a one-year extension. However, no one told her about the drop. She had spent years making her fancy office a place where she could work without anyone bothering her. No one told her that it was going to be taken away. She was very angry. Why didn't they tell her? It wasn't because she was being selfish, but because she had done so much for CBS and kept the network together through scandals, reorganizations, and national tragedies. She told them behind the scenes that she wouldn't be pushed to the side and forgotten. She deserved every bit of respect in that room, and she wasn't the only one. Oprah was on her side. People who know both women well say Gayle made it clear, to keep her at CBS, they had to treat her like the star she was, not an empty space, or a cost to cut. And Oprah stood by her. Their friendship had always been strong, and it wasn't just because of their past, it was also how they lived their lives. Oprah said that Gayle was happier about her luck than her own, a lot of the time. Gayle had always said that Oprah was the kindest person she had ever met. Gayle joined Oprah when she started her own network. When Gayle needed room to grow at CBS, Oprah watched and cheered. It was said that they were dating for decades, but they didn't change their minds. They made fun of it. They changed the record. Also, they told everyone that real friendship doesn't need to be explained, even when things were bad. Like when Charlie Rose, Gayle's former co-anchor, was involved in a scandal, or when people didn't like her interview with Lisa Leslie about Kobe Bryant's legacy, she remained firm. She didn't jump when other people did. Gayle showed her appreciation with ease, humor, and a strong work ethic that kept her at the top of her game for many years. But now things were different. Oprah had said she might slow down. Gayle also had this thought in her mind. Health had a funny way of making things clear. Not just the pain or the illness, but also what they left behind. There was time left. The occasions that were still important to Gayle and Dot. She smiled through the news stories and wore gold heels and expensive purses, but she was facing a truth she could no longer run away from. Her body was trying to tell her something. The future was ready for her. That was the first time she had to decide if leaving CBS meant taking a step back or finally starting a new life without goals, ratings, or morning call times. CBS made it hard to make that choice. Still, it wasn't getting as many viewers as ABC and NBC. An all-time low in morale had been reached in the press as executives rushed to cut $500 million in costs. Others at work talked in whispers about leaving, not knowing what would happen and who might be next. Gayle King stayed in the news even with all of that, but not because of another exclusive interview or a tear-jerking moment. It was because of something no one saw coming. Happened live on air during a fun segment with Alex Cooper, a famous radio host. Gayle chose to ask the guests on Call Her Daddy tough questions, instead of the usual ones that Cooper liked to ask. She asked Cooper a racy question about her marriage with the confidence and curiosity that she always has. It caught everyone off guard. Even the producers tried to cut in through the earpieces, because the question was so out of the blue. Gayle wasn't just making trouble though. She wanted to say something. It was important to her that people could relate to these kinds of moments. Honest, brave, and uncertain. And if the network needed a reminder of how far she could reach, she did it right then. Gayle was able to go from a serious political talk to lighthearted banter without losing her rhythm. That time you spent with Cooper wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. She once again proved that she could make TV shows that people couldn't stop talking about. But while she laughed and joked during parts, big things were going on behind the scenes. Gayle still went to her audience every morning, but she was also getting ready for a trip that was unlike anything she had ever done before. It is planned for this spring for Gayle King to go into space with Blue Origin's first all-female crew. That's right. She's dressed up with Katy Perry, writer Lauren Sanchez, NASA scientist Aisha Bowe, civil rights activist Amanda Nguyen, and producer Carrie Ann Flynn. She's 70 years old. The project, which is called NS-31, will go beyond the Kármán line, which is 62 miles above the surface of the Earth, and into real space. As they rise at more than 3 times the speed of sound, they'll take off their seats and float for a few minutes without any weight on them before going back down. You can't say enough about how important this flight is. Not since Valentina Tereskova's solo mission in 1963 has a team made up of only women taken on something so risky. Gayle sees the event as more than just a science milestone. It's about you. She has spent decades telling stories from every angle on Earth, and now she gets to see something that very few people have ever seen. She's no longer just telling history. She's becoming it. Gayle has had many experiences, not just in space. In her personal life too, she has had a lot of happy times. A few months ago, her 37-year-old son William Bumpus Jr. married Elise Smith in a rite that will never be forgotten. It took place at Oprah Winfrey's house. Gayle has always called Will her favorite son because he is the only one she has. She has made no secret of how happy she is to have a new daughter-in-law. The wedding was very important to the pair. They got together on the 2nd of every month, They said yes on the 2nd of the month. They got married on June 2nd. Gayle told the whole story live on air, beaming with joy as pictures played on the screen. Oprah was of course the center of attention at the event, and she kindly offered her home for the service, and making fun of Gayle about how cheap her location prices are. Gayle was moved the most by the promises, not the beautiful setting. "I know the man I am, but with you I know the man I want to be," her son told her. She told him it gave her chills. Watching her kids start their own families while she kept trying new things in her own life gave her a strong sense of satisfaction. Gayle's work high points, family milestones, and soon-to-be space adventures were all good things. But there was still a cloud over her future. There was a difference. The news of her diagnosis earlier this year may not have been widely known, but it changed the way she thought about things. Because of that illness, CBS's instability, and her desire to spend more time with her growing family, she had to rethink her place in the world of daily broadcasting. It's possible that she wasn't really leaving the media, but maybe she was done with the daily grind, the never-ending schedule, and the responsibility of keeping numbers high when it wasn't her fault. It was hard for people to believe the whispers at first. Gayle King quitting? It's not possible. She's been there every morning for more than 10 years, the steady presence in the middle of the chaos. Her voice could talk to leaders one day and pop stars the next, but when Gayle starts to say goodbye, she does it her own way, with style, purpose, and clarity. She's not going away from public view. She's changed from a news anchor to a space traveler, from a reporter to a proud mother-in-law. She used to ask hard questions, but now she has to answer one for herself. What kind of life does she want? A life where she can be fit, in the present, and willing to take chances. A quieter and more meaningful life. A life that still affects a lot of people, but doesn't have to start before dawn. Gayle is showing everyone that starting over isn't a setback as she gets ready to float through space, laugh with her daughter-in-law, enjoy her son's milestones, and maybe end the chapter on CBS mornings. It's the reward. That might be what this moment is all about. It's possible that her choice to say goodbye isn't about leaving something broken behind. It could be about moving on to something bigger, lighter, and more open. Something that finally lets her breathe.